Have you ever looked back at a relationship and wondered, when did we stop feeling so close? Not because someone stopped loving, not because someone betrayed the other, but because little things quietly became big things. Woman to woman, I think this happens more often than we realize, especially after 50. By this stage of life, most of us have learned that lasting love isn't built by grand romantic gestures. It's built in ordinary conversations, quiet moments, small daily choices. And sometimes, without realizing it, we develop habits that slowly create distance between us and the people we love most. Today, I want to share 3 mistakes that even wonderful women sometimes make. Not because they're bad women, not because they don't love deeply, but because they're human. And the beautiful thing about being human is that we can always grow. Let's begin with the first one. Number 1, never let someone else's attention decide your worth. Several years ago, I met a woman named Linda. She was kind, intelligent, funny, the type of woman everyone enjoyed being around. She had recently started seeing a man named Daniel. He treated her well. He respected her. He made her laugh. But there was one habit Linda couldn't seem to break. Every morning she waited for his message. When it arrived, her day felt lighter. When it didn't, her thoughts began racing. Did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest? Did I do something to upset him? One afternoon, Daniel didn't call. By evening, Linda had already imagined a dozen reasons why. The next morning, he finally phoned. His younger brother had been taken to the hospital unexpectedly. He had spent the entire day there. As Linda listened, she felt embarrassed, not because she cared too much, but because she had allowed one unanswered message to decide how she felt about herself. Woman to woman, I think many of us have been there. We confuse someone's availability with our value, but those are 2 very different things. A good man may become busy. He may become distracted. Life may ask more of him for a season. That doesn't automatically mean his feelings have changed. One of the greatest gifts maturity gives us is learning not to write painful stories before we know the truth. A confident woman enjoys love. She appreciates attention, but she never depends on it to feel worthy. Because the moment your confidence depends entirely on someone else's actions, your peace no longer belongs to you, and your peace is far too valuable to hand over that easily. Number 2, stop comparing yourself to another woman. Not long ago, I spoke with a woman named Rebecca. She had been happily married for many years. One afternoon, she admitted something that surprised me. She said, "The hardest battle I ever fought wasn't with another woman. It was with my own imagination." She told me there was a woman at her husband's workplace. Beautiful, confident, successful. Whenever her husband mentioned her name, Rebecca smiled on the outside, but inside, comparison quietly began growing. She wondered if the other woman was prettier, more interesting, more exciting. Little by little, she started questioning everything about herself. She bought clothes she didn't even like, changed little things that never needed changing, tried to become someone she thought her husband would admire more. One evening, her husband noticed something wasn't right. He looked at her and gently asked, "Rebecca, when did you stop seeing the woman I fell in love with?" She looked at him in silence. Then he smiled. "I never asked you to become someone else. I've always wanted you." Those words stayed with her, and they remind me of something important. Woman to woman, comparison is a battle nobody truly wins. There will always be someone younger, someone wealthier, someone with different gifts. But another woman's beauty never takes away yours. Another woman's success never reduces your value. Healthy love is not a competition, and the right man will never make you feel as though you have to compete for a place in his heart. The moment you believe you must outperform another woman to deserve love, you've already forgotten something precious. You were never meant to earn your worth. You already have it. Number 3, don't expect silence to say what your heart is afraid to speak. There was a woman named Donna. She had been married to her husband Samuel for almost 38 years. If you met them at church or at a family gathering, you probably would have said they were a happy couple. They rarely argued. They were always respectful. They smiled. They laughed. From the outside, everything looked peaceful. But behind the front door, something was quietly changing. Whenever Donna felt hurt, she stopped talking. Not because she wanted to punish Samuel, because she hoped he would notice. She hoped he would ask what was wrong. She hoped he would somehow understand the words she never spoke. Sometimes she stayed quiet for hours, sometimes for an entire day. Samuel noticed. Of course he did. But he didn't know what she needed. So he did what many good men do when they're afraid of making things worse. He gave her space. The more space he gave, the more alone Donna felt. And the more alone she felt, the quieter she became. Until one evening, Samuel gently looked at her and said, "Donna, I can handle an honest conversation. I can even handle disagreement. But I don't know how to fight a silence that never tells me what it needs." Those words broke her heart, because for the first time, she realized they were both hurting. Not because they didn't love each other, but because they were expecting silence to do a job that only honesty could do. Woman to woman, I think many of us have done this at one time or another. Not because we wanted to manipulate someone, but because we feared saying, "You hurt me," or "I need you," or simply, "I'm struggling today." The truth is, the people who truly love us cannot read our minds, no matter how much they wish they could. Healthy relationships aren't built by two people who never disappoint one another. They're built by two people who keep finding the courage to talk, especially when talking feels difficult. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can say isn't, "I'm fine." It's, "Can we sit down for a few minutes? I need to tell you what's on my heart." That one conversation can save months, sometimes even years, of unnecessary distance. As I think about these 3 lessons, I realize they all point back to the same truth. A woman who truly knows her worth doesn't spend her life chasing reassurance. She doesn't compare herself with every other woman she meets, and she doesn't expect silence to communicate what honesty was designed to say. She chooses something far more powerful. She chooses self-respect. She chooses peace. She chooses honest love. That doesn't mean she'll never feel insecure. It doesn't mean she'll never make mistakes. It simply means she's learning something all of us are still learning. That healthy love begins long before someone else chooses us. It begins the day we stop losing ourselves in the process of loving someone else. And perhaps that's one of the greatest gifts of growing older. Not that life becomes easier, but that we become wiser. We stop chasing relationships that ask us to prove our worth. We stop competing for love that should be freely given. We stop carrying conversations in our hearts that were meant to be spoken aloud. Woman to woman, real class has very little to do with how we dress or how perfectly we speak. Real class is found in the quiet choices we make every day. The choice to respect ourselves. The choice to communicate honestly. The choice to love deeply without ever abandoning who we are. Because the strongest women I have ever known weren't the women who never made mistakes. They were the women who learned from them and became gentler, wiser, and more peaceful because of it. If this conversation spoke to your heart today, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 3 lessons touched you the most? Or perhaps you've learned another lesson about love that changed your life. Share it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. And remember, the right relationship will never require you to lose yourself to keep someone else.